stage. Like he's phenomenal on the Edith. Like we've already seen that. But yesterday, was it yesterday? Yesterday he even picked up the Guinevere roam. You know, and how many massive plays did he make on the Guinevere roam? So, you know, when you have roamers like this on certain teams, it's difficult to go through the draft and really, you kind of just have to pick your poison when it comes to, you know, these bans and what you're willing to give up, because you can only have so many bans. And that's the R lot that is going to be taken out here for the last ban for the first phase from Indonesia. Myanmar, we'll see what they answer with. Again, there's a whole lot on the table. I think even lately, we've seen so many contests for the Edith pickup from men's and women's. And Edith alone as a hero is probably one of the more successful roams right now, setting up for team. I would say, for Indonesia at least, the Grok. We saw this ban out before, but wow, it's the Lui Yi. So Myanmar took the task of banning out the Chip and the Lui Yi, and so the response is a Harith over here.
They let the Harith go, and technically they also leave the Roger go. So I honestly, with the Lui ban, it makes sense. I was about to say, you know, before they actually banned the Lui, that the Harith and Roger will definitely be something in their minds. But letting go of both will be great for them, because then they can actually just decide to react to the pick, whichever, you know, Indonesia go for. If they go for the Roger first, Myanmar will react with the Harith. If if Harith gets picked up, they'll go with the Roger. So vice versa. We'll see now. Myanmar, I think one slot will definitely be used for the Roger. But now that the Frederick is picked up, if they do go for the Roger, but now technically it already kind of deletes that flex potential from the game. Roger won't be going into the jungle unless the Fredrin goes XP. And I gotta be honest with you, Naisu, I am a Fredrin XP hater. I am the #1 Fredrin XP hater, right?
Why?
I just hate how, you know how, like, you know, in the XP you want to go for brawls? The Fredrin's like, nah. I don't want to. Nah. Yeah, he just wants us to say it.
Nah, I'd
Good
win.
Nolan pick, though. Nah, I'd win, but, you know, he eventually he never wins, but he never loses. He's just a non-lane.
It's a
Torres
dead
gets
lane.
picked as well. And the Nolan's going to be a great pick here. If the Fredrin does go for the towards the jungle, this is what Indonesia have been able to utilize, I think, yesterday as well. The multiple layers of damage and the versatility that you get with the Nolan and the Harith. You can go back and forth. You can also still kite, but obviously the #1 way to win with this composition is go for the initial burst, lock them down, and burst them down on the spot.
Man, I'm glad you pointed that out too, because I'm also wondering, like, if Myanmar picked up the Fredrin like a little bit early here, but, you know, because you already know where things are going into place. Okay, Tigreal is what they grab up. I would like to see them ban out Guinevere. I don't know if it's actually worth a ban for Myanmar, but this lineup, when we saw at least the Harith and Nolan, the Guinevere was for Keyboy. And that was what helped, like, the setups with just having a Guinevere for those two heroes alone. And now you have a penalty zone. It was nasty, man. So I feel like for Myanmar, I might think about banning out the Guinevere, letting that be one of the bans here. But, you know, at least they answer it. Hey, they have a Tigreal, pretty good implosion setups that can happen with this lineup, especially when you're fighting into a possible penalty zone, being the initiation. You know, that happens a lot of times so far from when we see Terizla's locked in. It's just, you want to be able to fight into that, because that's going to be a Zaman Force also being dropped down. So they do go with a roam ban, but it's going to be a Grok instead. And so far, like I was saying before, I think, you know, Keyboy's versatility as a player and his hero pool is kind of what makes this lineup so strong, or just Keyboy so strong in general, is the fact that you can ban out some of the key heroes he picks, but then he kind of just like curveballs and picks a Guinevere, who there are not many roams that are actually confident enough to pick a Guinevere and then play it to the way that he did, like especially yesterday. So now for Indonesia, on the other hand, what do they want to ban out here? You know, some more mages maybe they could take out, you know, for the mid lane being an option. Wow, a Paquito. Not expecting that, because, man, we have not seen much Paquito throughout this entire ISF run.
Not at all. I don't think we've seen a single Paquito game in the entire ISF for African regional qualifiers combined with the Asian regional qualifiers. So
he popped up in women's today. I remember watching a tournament Rashi. He just popped up once. So that's like, I think, the first time, man.
Yeah, the fact that it's only popped out once, right, means that I don't know about the Paquito. Maybe in these matchups up against the Yuzong, the Terizlas, you know, the two super prio heroes, it just doesn't do too well. Or maybe it's just because now you're kind of forced to commit into these team fights, not so much play the Lord dance anymore, right? But for Myanmar, like you said, I completely agree with you, by the way. The Guinevere makes perfect sense for Indonesia. There's so much value here. Number one, you get the Viral Requiem. That in itself is already an anti-CC that you can utilize to get out of these engages coming in from the Tigreal. They actually go for the Masha ban as well. So 2 XP bans towards Ruby DD. A lot of respect placed down as they've already revealed their own XP lane with the Terizla. But another reason why the other 2 reasons why it's great is because, yeah, number 1, or number 2, actually, the number 1 we already got earlier, is it is a great lockdown hero, a good setter to set up for the Nolan and the Herod damage to come through, and to even set up for the penalty zone to just find a more reliable hit.
Yeah.
But then the final reason has got to be the Fredrin. I think back then when Fredrin was ultra meta, the way that you would actually try to counter it in the jungle would be the Guinevere. The Guinevere would be a solid answer to go for the retreat battles, because you could actually just go away with the spatial migration, get the stun, and it kind of works in a way similar to the Akai. You CC your opponent to get 100-0 retreat, to win out in the retreat battle. And because of the range changes, now the Guinevere we don't see too much in the jungle, but I think for Keyboy, you can still make it work. It's a good Novaria pick though. I think that will kind of stop and give the Guinevere a hurdle if they do still decide to go for the Guinevere. Because on the Guinevere, you're very reliant on these ambushing attacks. You need to play outside of the vision, right? You have to play within the pockets there, back and forth. Because if you get read out, it's pretty easy to predict, you know, a spatial migration coming in from a Guinevere. You can see it in their eyes almost.
You can see it in their eyes if you were in the first-person view in the Land of Dawn, you know? There it is. I was saying, you know, we saw this iteration already, these combination of heroes with some minor changes. Instead of the Terizla yesterday, it was an Arlott. And instead of the Valentina, yes, it was a Loi Yi. Loi Yi was actually picked up. So, you know, the core 3 there, though, that made it so deadly was the Guinevere, the Nolan, for the most part. Like, early game snowball potential is really there. So I think for Myanmar, as they go for their last pick, they really need to have a kind of a plan in mind. It's going to be the XP lane, unless this is a crazy flex with the Fredrin. Not sure if that's going to happen, though. But the Yuzhong is open. Not sure if they actually want to do that, or maybe possibly go with something we haven't seen yet. I'm just assuming, you know, they go Yuzhong because that's Yuzhong and Terizla matchup we've seen so many times throughout the Iesf groups, and they go Cho. Okay, so they go the Cho pick, which you're gonna put in the XP lane. What do you think? You think that's good? Do you think this is a good choice?
We did see the Cho yesterday, right? I believe Myanmar versus Thailand, Ruby DD actually did play the Cho in the XP.
Yeah.
So technically, we've already seen that before. He was also able to win, but I was against Thailand. And now against this composition, there's so much anti-CC, so many dashes. I guess the one member you can go for the pickoffs on would be the Nolan. Right now, with the Fracture also, no more, you know, CC immunity, no more kind of built-in Purify with the Fracture. So technically, I see the idea. And especially now that the Cho has been buffed in a way where in the lane, he actually does a lot more damage. That passive has the physical defense shreds. It'll work towards the Roger as well later on in the game. And if you go for these pickoffs, and with the Jikundo, it allows you to go for the trades a bit more reliably now compared to before when it was a bit shorter. But I'm not a big fan of the Cho in the XP. I think you all know why.
Well, let's find out here. Ladies and gentlemen, it's game number 2. Match point for Indonesia to move forward and advance to qualifying for the WEC in Rion. All they need is this one win to move forward. Myanmar, can they extend the series to get to the 3 game? We're going to have to take a look at this exactly because, yeah, like we said, there's a whole lot of Purifies here to deal with a lot of the CC that Myanmar has available to them. And look at this, already early rotations happening here for Juno. But, you know, one thing too, I'm not sure if anyone's going to get a kill with this early on with this lineup, but with Ruby DD running, like you said, this kind of new Cho, having that passive, I think it's like 180% is what you get with that bonus attack. But then you have a concussive blast. So I'm wondering how the lineup or how the matchup with even going against a Terizla performs in terms of like the numbers and being able to stay, or is it just purely I'm going to go and try to get some pickoffs, you know, because right now they're just duking it out. And you can see Mlbb also went up with the Brave Smite. So once he goes with War Axe, most likely he'll be able to just kind of stay in the lane as long as he wants to. So on mid lane, still Alberttt trying to find early pickoffs, but I just don't think it's going to happen here until these level 4s, especially that Turtle's still 30 seconds away. But look at this, Ken fighting for his own XP, and Alberttt will go ahead and just continue on with this.
I think, you know, with Brave Smite, hold on. Down below, Lycan Pounce, Juno going to be caught in the spatial migration as well. Does have the Purify to get out, but the damage is certainly there. And Juno will have to respect it by backing away. But back to the Brave Smite. So most Terizlas that we've seen, especially with the War Axe change, they go for the Impure Rage to get more mana, and then they just go and rely on the sustainability of the War Axe. So the fact that he's doubling down means he's ready for Myanmar's you know, full-on team fight and the longer team fights. As Alberttt starts his turtle, Keyboy's hovering over, doesn't have that level 4 just yet, but has already been able to shove in that bottom lane, or that mid lane actually. Good Astral Echo, and that's giving the spatial migration. Alberttt with the fracture, not even, actually, will be able to go for it. Now penalty zone locking him down with the Violent Requiem. Alberttt picking up the first blood as Zide will be forced to run away, but even then, the Retribution slows him down, gives Alberttt the movement speed to catch back up and to take him out. A 2-0 start for Indonesia.
Man, this is what I was saying even yesterday, Mirko. Like, once Alberttt gets snowballing on any of the assassins that he picks up, he's going to continue to just be very aggressive. So you got to be, if you're Myanmar, you got to be able to answer this. And that might just be also protecting Ken a little bit more, because that pressure could get a little overwhelming. You're seeing nothing locked in first item-wise yet for both teams, but Indonesia getting themselves already 2K ahead against Myanmar with all those exchanges is where they usually start their games. It starts a little bit slower, they get the advantage going, and then it snowballs out of control. We saw this the last time, like I said, continuously with this lineup, these three heroes, the Keyboy on that Guinevere, you have Alberttt on the Nolan, and of course the CW on the Harith. There's a ton of damage potential that can happen here early on. And for Myanmar, they have tanky enough heroes. But, you know, that's kind of what they're hoping for, that we're just tanky and durable enough to deal with the burst damage that can come through. I mean, even look at this. Ken.
Spatial migration again with the Violent Requiem straight into the Fracture, and Zide will be able to get the implosion down. Sans, an implosion as well, not connecting anyone, but Zide will still be melted down slowly but surely for Alberttt to pick up a killing spree in the first 3 minutes of the game. Deja vu to game 1 yesterday, or game 2.
Yeah. You see what I'm saying, though? Like Myanmar, they drafted this because they're like, I hope we're tanky enough to go and deal with this burst, but it's just showing that they're not. And a lot of that has to do with the way Indonesia is cycling through their CC. And that's whether, and we talked about this extensively in the draft, that Keyboy was probably going to pick up the Guinevere, and I'm surprised that it actually wasn't banned out for the last ban from Myanmar, because it works wonders with this lineup. So now that this turtle's up here, Myanmar, despite them being down already, you know, 3,000-4,000 gold, they do still want to fight for this objective. And as long as they at least, you know, watch out for Keyboy setting up just like that, that's good. They don't get set up, so at least, you know, they avoid it for now, but still they have to win this battle. Echo going to be dropped down too. They get the vision, but still both teams are ready to go for it. It's going to be a full-on fight.
The penalty zone onto Ken now with the implosion as well, locking him down. Mlbb dealing a lot of damage. Ken will be taken out, but just with the hammer swings as CW jumps with the synchro vision, and Alberttt gets rid of the frontliners. Juno completely zoned away. They're being overwhelmed by damage. Another spatial migration into the Violent Requiem. Keyboy finding an angle to attack again, and Justin doesn't have mana to play with. Oh no, no Astral Recall means that Alberttt can just walk up Fracture, and now the Lethal Ignition taking down slowly but surely. Alberttt fadeaway kill under the tier 2 as he now goes for the steal. I don't think he'll be able to do so. Ken has the Retribution, but man, Albert's already 3 levels ahead.
Oh, awesome. We're going to take a look at this replay here on how this kind of unfolded. And like I was saying, you know, Myanmar, I'm surprised they really do want to go and fight for this, because, wow, that's all in reverse, by the way. So it's all in reverse, I think. But
Dynamics, bro.
The dynamics. But, you know, as we saw that unfold, it was Myanmar just choosing to fight for that. And honestly, it didn't work out for them the way they wanted it to. And Alberttt also, with that whole exchange, now picks up the Sky Piercer. And look at Keyboy. Like, this is just how confident Keyboy is with this Guinevere. Given the information, he's the walking ward.
Facial migration only onto the orange buff. Alberttt decides to just take it away from Ken. Being 4 levels ahead, it does, look quite easy to go for these steals, but man, the fact that he was... What is up with Alberttt on the Assassins? It just... Do you remember last game, he played the Baksha, it looked like, okay, he's good, but on the Assassins, it's a different level entirely. RubyDD. Kudo, I don't think you can really even go for this. Loopy gonna be able to outdamage RubyDD. And that's right, Keyboy! Again with the Violent Requiem, locking Justin up as Loopy goes in for the hammer swing, and Keyboy gets out. Alberttt with Fracture, now CW goes over the spot for Sans again with the Implosion Steal to corral them together for that collapse. 11-0,
cool.
And now it's gonna be RubyDD who gets slain by CW.
My goodness, just like yesterday. The same thing is happening with this lineup that just has a few changes, but what the heck? Indonesia just pulling forward again. Myanmar, you guys have to understand, Myanmar was basically undefeated in the group stage. They just dominated time and time again, and now Indonesia, even though they lost in the group stage, at this point it looks like they are playing perfectly with this lineup, with this composition of heroes even, and Alberttt yet to be killed, yet to be stopped, picks up a Malefic Roar. I don't even know what Myanmar can do at this point. They have to somehow, some way allow Juno to get online, and this is exactly why I say, man, I don't like Roger in the gold lane. I'd rather have him in the jungle because it's just so difficult for him to farm up at this point to get the space that he needs to work with. And I mean, you're looking at the disparity in terms of the gold. He's also just very far behind CW right now. He hasn't died, which is great, but look at all the setup potential you have with these heroes, and you have no follow-up. If he enters, if Juno tries to go in, even Lycan pounce in, he's probably gonna get blown up before he gets a chance to get a hit off. That's the troubling part about having this Roger in the gold lane. And so now you're forced, hold on.
We're going to be locked down. By the way, the Dragon as well, and Keyboy will be locked down by everything in the kitchen sink to get Myanmar their first kill in the game. CW going for the chase though. Opposite Zaman Force will not be able to fully go for that kill onto Juno, who still has the Purify, but Indonesia wanna utilize this resource advantage now. As RubyDD walks up again with the Shunpu, it's gonna be Alberttt walking up, dealing some damage back onto Ken, forcing him to half HP as Sans deals with them in the back as well, isolating and zoning them away from this tier 2 in the mid lane.
Oh, Sans also picks up the implosion, so we might have to keep an eye on a possible play. Doesn't have a flicker, it went with the Purify instead, but can still possibly use that in a quite a surprising way. You'll have to see it unfold. Taking a look at the items real quick too, you can see them coming into place already. CW has those 3 items working on the next here. Could be a Holy Crystal next, or just going into even some more penetration, because right now there's just too much damage overloading Myanmar. When they get a pick off with RubyDD, it's great, but he has to do so much work to get it through. So as they try to defend this tier 2 turret, look at this. Albertt's just going to go ahead and start up the Lord. He doesn't need the rest of the team to come here. They can just keep this, Myanmar at bay from even entering their jungle. RubyDD, like, just trying to make something happen will just get poked down, and that's just Sans. Sans is 0-0 and 10. It's nearly impossible to get the kill on this Valentina. So with that, Myanmar is going to find themselves once again on the defensive, trying to hold on the best they can. For Indonesia, with the tools they have and the fact that Sans has an implosion, they could possibly force this situation in here. Wow. And shields are going to be popped already before that Lord even gets there. Holy Crystal just picked up by CW, so the damage is now even further ahead for Indonesia in terms of potential. Myanmar on the defense.
A lot of battle spells already back up. It's going to be just almost decimated there by the Fracture penalty zone on the 3 Lepay. Again with the engage, and now he's going to put Zaman Force onto the back, doing all the damage. RubyDD will lose his life, and Side as well just gets melted down, completely obliterated under the base turret as Indonesia continue the siege. Now into the top lane. That's going to be base turret number 2 taken down as Lippy zones them again with some damage on that hammer, swinging it by Ken. Going to take a little bit of that. Sans again also goes for the splash. Alberttt looking for the play. Keyboy again with the spatial migration into the winter crowd as he pops into Battle Requiem, and look at Justin, who can't even defend. Juno forced back all the way to the fountain, and RubyDD spawns back in. But Indonesia, 16-1, have just dominated Myanmar in a clean sweep.
Oh man, a clean